think we should be able to record the maximum or the minimum and maximum that we encounter through the loop, ensuring that the minimum is after, or the maximum is after the minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's all right if I think as I code.
Sure, sure. But before I want to just clarify one thing. So you said maximum minimum there. Um,
Yes.
is is a max? Okay, can you be a bit more precise on what you mean by maximum minimum? Like, is the maximum value in the array always guaranteed to appear after the minimum value?
Uh, no. So we would have to ensure that the maximum that we're choosing is the maximum uh, after our minimum.
Okay. Okay. I think that's a reasonable foundation to start, but we can definitely clarify things along the way.
Okay, cool. Right. Uh,
You're talking about a one pass solution here, right?
yes.
Is that going to cause you trouble when you think about like how to get this thing started up? Like if you're not sure how to do one pass, we can start with a two pass and then move towards one pass.
Right, I see. I think, so I think the main issue here is that we have to ensure that the maximum is coming after the minimum. So rather than recording both the current maximum and the minimum, we could only record the current minimum value. Right. And can set that to is our int max, or we could set it to our first value here.
Okay.
And then as we iterate through the array, we could take the difference of each current price or of each date, and then uh, record our maximum profit. So we would be iterating each price and prices. Our profit would be equal to the maximum profit that we have currently, and current minus current minimum. And then we can also make sure to place our current minimum with the minimum price that we have, and then return the final profit. We also have to make sure that if our array is empty, then we just return 0 so that we don't
Okay.
access invalid element.
Okay.
And, yep.
Okay, should we do a walkthrough?
Yep.
Do you want to come up with a test example? Or do you want me to provide them for you?
Sure. I think if you could provide one. Good. Right. So then I just explain what the output would be.
Yeah.
All right. So we would start with 7, and our minimum would be the 7. Profit starts out at 0. So for the first one, it would just be 0 because we'd be taking the difference of the first value.
Okay.
Profit stays 0, and then we go into 1, and the profit would still be at 0 because 1 minus 7 would be less than our current profit, and then, but in this case, our current minimum would change to 1. That would be our buying date, our buying price. And then we go on to 5, and from there, our 5 minus 1 would be greater than our current profit, which is 0, so we get 4, so our current profit would be 4, and our current minimum would still stay at 1. And at 3, our profit would stay the same since it's less, and at 6, the profit would increase to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And at 4, it would still be the same, so our final profit would be 5.
Okay. Final profit being 5. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then can you tell me what would happen if, for example, the array was like all decreasing prices?
Then in that case, our initial profit is always 0. So, if it was decreasing prices, then the price minus our current minimum. So our current minimum will always be larger than our price since they're afterwards. So our profit would just end up at 0.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good to me. Let's talk about the time and space complexity of this function, please.
Right, so the time complexity, we're just doing a single pass through the loop, so the ON, where n is the size of the input vector. And space complexity would be constant since we are only using these 2 variables.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Are there any other concerns with this limitation? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next question here.
No, I think that's it.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll build upon this question, but it's a separate question now. So this is a follow-up to this question. So we won't be modifying this function anymore, but you can call it as a helper if you need. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So for the so the same premise, you're given a one-iterative function, which given a vector of prices, we want to again find the best time to buy and sell a stock. Okay. However, there are some other. It's a different premise now, which is that now you can hold at most 1 share of the stock at any given time, but you can sell it. But you can buy it and sell it on the same day as needed. And the main difference here is that we still want to find the maximum price, but the main difference can be that you can buy and sell multiple times. But you can still only hold 1 share at a time, okay? But you can buy and sell multiple times throughout the time period, okay?
Okay.
So before we kind of dive into that, let's just take the same example here, and
Yes.
I want you to walk through it and tell me in this new regime what the maximum profit would be.
Right. So in that case, we could buy at 1, sell at 5, so you get 4. And we could buy again at 3 and sell at 6, so we get 3 more. So we have a max profit of 7.
Yep. Yep, that's right.
Okay, great. Great. All right.
So what are we thinking about this one? Are we thinking about it in the context of the first one? Are we thinking about it as a new problem? How are you approaching this one here?
I think that I guess we could still keep it in the context of the previous problem where we still want to do the same thing where the smallest and selling at the largest. Or I guess it would be a bit different because we can sell much earlier. So the range in which we consider the maximum would be, I guess, not till the end of the array, but until the next minimum value we can find.
Yeah. That's one way to put it. I think you're on the right track, yeah.
So,
So one thing to note here that I'm not sure if you caught, it's actually very important to the problem, which is that you're able to buy and sell on the same day.
right. Buy and sell on the same day.
So buying and selling the same day implies one thing, which is that you reduce the list of numbers of prices into a list of pairs of options. Right? So consider this. Consider that we have a price, and let's just go. So let's do a simple. So price is 2. Let's call it 7. Yeah, 715 is fine. So 715. So let's consider that these are our prices. Okay.
Okay.
Actually, let's do it 517. Okay. So consider. So this is not optimal, but you consider the fact that if you buy on 5 and sell, so buy on 5, sell on 7, this is equivalent to, right? Buy on 5, sell on 1, and then buy on 1, sell on 7.
Right.
Right now, this is not optimal, obviously, right? But I'm just telling you that this is equivalent.
Yes. Okay. Oh, okay.
How are we feeling about this one so far? What's the current hesitation here? I wanna know what you're thinking of. I wanna know what you're concerned about right now.
Right. So I guess it's trying to determine each peak and yeah, I guess each peak and dip to so each min and max to actually how to determine which one is the current min and max.
Okay.
Because
Well, so this is what we're getting at, right? So if you're looking at, let's take a series of these numbers, we don't really need to know what the min and max are because we can just simply look at pairs of numbers, right? So we can consider 5 and 1 in a vacuum, and we can consider 1 and 7 in a vacuum. And if you make optimal choices for those two pairs, you have made an optimal choice for 517. Does that make sense?
uh, yes, I think so.
Can we think more about this example here? Right. So let's consider that you have some numbers before 5, like let's call them x, and this might be like many numbers, right? And your many numbers after 7,
Yes.
right? So I'm gonna posit that so we can just keep this here. I want to posit that let's say we have a function called max profit, which we do. I mean, we're gonna make another one, right? So just make this like old or something, right? So I can posit that if we have a function max profit, let's assume it's correct. Let's assume it's correct, okay? So I'm gonna say max profit of prices too. Okay, this equals max profit of xxx plus max profit of 517 plus max profit of y. Okay, this is what I'm going to posit. Okay, and I want us to think through why this is the case. Okay, so let's assume that xx, we can assume it's any numbers. Let's say if it's a worst case, they're all decreasing values, right? They're all decreasing. Then in that case, this would be 0. Like we wouldn't buy and sell at all, right? So that's a pretty obvious case. However, let's say that the number before this is like 1 or something. So we want to be able to buy from 1 to 5, right? Buy on 1, sell on 5, right? This is basically equivalent of saying, we have some optimal solution for the previous numbers, and we want to be able to identify this pair as being good, right? But the thing is I have arbitrarily split this up. Like it doesn't matter. Like it could have been like this, for example. I've just arbitrarily split it up. So let's look at this. So let's change it to x. So let's look at this pair over here. So if I say we have, so let's say we have max profit. Let's do it over here. So let's say max profit 517. This is equivalent to max profit of 5 and 1 and max profit of 1 and 7.
Yes.
Okay, because we need to make a decision if we want to buy and sell. Like, do we want to buy on 5 and sell on 1? Do we want to buy on 1 and sell on 7? Right? You can't say, for example, I want to buy on 1 and sell on 5. That's not valid. Right? But buying on 5, selling on 1 is valid. So you can think of this sequence of numbers as the sum of the optimal choice for all the pairs within all the pairwise pairings within the sequence. Right? So for example, in this case, max profit of this would just be 0 because we wouldn't choose to do that, right? We wouldn't choose to do that. And then 1 to 7 would be 6 because we would choose to take this pair.
Right.
Does that make sense? And so therefore the max profit of 517 is 6 because we have broken it down to its constituent pairs.
Right.
So can we think about it from this perspective? Like, how would this change, for example, if I added another number, like let's say 9? How would this change? Can you walk me through the same logic and tell me how that would change?
So 5 and 1, so if you split it again, it'd still be 0.
Yeah.
The 1 and 7, you still have your
So that's
6.
over here. Yeah.
7 and 9, you can get 2.
Yeah. Do you want to put that over here?
Right.
Yeah.
Whoops. And you get 2 as well.
Yes. So what does this tell you? So that's
equivalent to buying on 1 and selling on 9.
Yes, it's equivalent to buying on 1 and selling on 9 because that's 8 as well, right? But the difference is that now we don't need, like when we consider the 1 and 7 pair, we don't need to consider 9 at all. We know that it will be correct if it was considered because we have this term over here. Right. And then, okay, so let's say, so let's copy this again. So let's say what happens if instead of 9, this was 6. Can you walk me through this logic? So then what would happen?
Then in this case, it would just be 0 again. And so the max profit would still just be 6, which is equivalent to 1 and 7. So I guess that means that we can just go through the entire array, calculating each pair and just adding all the profits.
Mm-hmm.
As long as, yes. Right. Oh, okay. Right, I see. And that would just be with a single passes. Right. Okay. So to implement that, that's all we would have to change then.
Okay, can we walk through the examples? Or one of the examples that you, or you can make a new one, up to you.
Sure, I guess we could just go through this one again. Then we would start at 7, and the profit would, we would add to the profit the 1 minus 7, or maximum of 1 minus 7 and 0, which was just 0, so our profit would stay at 0. And then we would go on to 1 and 5 pair, where we would be able to add 4 to the profit. Go on to the 5 and 3 pair, still just 0. And we could go on to the 3 and 6 pair, which would add 3. So our current profit would be 7. 6 and 4 pair, which would just be 0, and it should end right there. And we would return final profit 7.
Okay. Are there any concerns with the indexes?
So we would be ending the loop at 6 here, where I is, and we would be accessing the 4 with I plus 1. So should not.
What is prices outside in this case? So there'll be 6.
So prices size minus 1 would be
5.
4, but I would be less than that. So right. Yes, size minus 1 would be 5. And
Okay.
so I would end at 6. Well, I guess I would increment to 5 before this pass.
Okay. And then lastly, again, what is the time and space of this function?
It would be same as before, still on time, since we're just doing a single pass. And
Okay.
constant space.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good to me. Okay. So there is one more follow-up here I wanted to ask. And maybe not surprisingly, it's about the same problem. Okay.
Right.
So we are again writing a function max profit, which takes in a list of prices, right? Same situation. However, the restriction this time is that you can only do 2 transactions. Okay, and they cannot overlap, which means that again you can only hold one stock at a time.
Right. Okay, so we're limited.
So this one I want us to focus mostly on like a discussion, walking through what your thoughts are, and not to focus too much on optimal solution in this case.
Oh, okay, cool. Alright, so we're limited to 2 transactions, which means so yeah, we definitely can't do this method where we're checking all the differences. Yeah, we shouldn't be able to.
So I mean, again, we can just start with an example, right? Let's just start with the first one. Like a given example here, and let's talk about what the profit here would be.
Yeah, I guess. So if we're limited to 2 transactions, it should still just be the same, where we would take 1 and 5 and 3 and 6.
Yep.
Our final profit should be 7.
Should still be 7. Yep.
And
How about for this case? I'll put at the bottom here.
okay. In this case, could just be 4. Or
Okay. Yep.
maximum probably should be 4.
It would be 4, but it would only be one transaction, right?
Yes, just a single transaction. So it'd follow the same logic we were talking about before.
Yep.
Right, so you would have to consider the case where only a single transaction is needed.
Yes, there are. I mean, in this case, you could still use 2 transactions if you need. So like, don't overfix it on that. But you only need 1 transaction in this case. Yeah.
Yep. So I think we could go back to sort of the first problem we had, where we were taking I was taking the current minimum and taking the difference of the current values, and then using our current minimum, so we would go through the array.
Yep. Okay, I think I see your intuition there. I think I see where you're going, but for the sake of time, I want us to disregard efficiency and use any way to come up with the correct solution. So let's not worry about that right now, and I want to just see how far we can get with just a correct implementation.
All right, so I mean, one way would be to brute force it, so just take...
Yeah, we can brute force it. Let's start there. It's not a problem to brute force for this kind of thing.
Right. Okay, so to brute force, we would just all the possible pairs, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we just start at like each value, take wait, how do we yeah, so I guess if we were to take like 7, for example, we would take the 7, find the profits for each of the values. So if we take 7, 1, as one possible combination, then we would take, then we would skip those 2 and take a second pair where we would like 5, and then try with 5 and some of the other values as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but then we could just disregard 7 and 1, and that would be a negative value, so okay. So we just have to try all possible combinations. Do you want me to try and implement this in the code?
You can use a different function to implement that, but yes, I would like an implementation of any correct solution.
Okay. Then
So I here is presumably your choice for the first purchase.
Yes, it would be the first
Okay.
purchase.
And so what choices do you have for the sale?
So it'd be all values following.
Okay.
So for int j equals +1. Right, so it'd be the all following prices. And then profit should equal to the I.
Okay.
Oh, oops.
And then your
Sorry.
choice for the second purchase?
Then our choice for the second purchase would then be another here. And so this would be j +1. And inside there, we would have our second selling point. Right. Yeah. And then but then we'd be holding the same value. Good. So in this case, we have to ensure that the profit is being updated correctly.
Yep.
And so to do that, we'd want to take the so we want to have a full max profit there. Our profit here. Right, and then so for each time we set both of them, our max profit should equal to the max of max profit and the current profit that we're trying to create or trying out each time.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. I see. Okay.
That
Cool.
makes-
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And just to wrap it up, let's talk about the time and space of this implementation.
Right, so the time should be O n to the 4, I guess, since we're doing 4 loops through it.
Mm-hmm.
And the space, space should be constant since we should only be holding this value. Or think constant. Would we have a distance each time? Yeah, it should be constant because we'd be holding one of these for each loop.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Anything else you wanted to talk about regarding this problem? Otherwise, we'll go into review.
Nope. I
Okay.
think so.
Perfect. Sounds good. Great. Review time. I mean, first of all, how do you feel about the three kind of problems we asked today? They're all the same theme. They got
Yeah.
more difficult, obviously, as they went on. I want your kind of thoughts about how well you thought you did on the earlier ones.
I think I did all right on the first one, but got a lot of help on the second one. So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, I think I was basically given the answer, so I'm not sure if I can say I did well on that.
Fair, fair.
Yeah.
Okay, and I
Last
mean, one thing
problem.
you wanted to work on this time was more on the collaborative side of things. Like, do you have any read on how that aspect went? Like, not from like problem solving, but like from the other side, yeah.
Uh, I feel like I can definitely work on more clarifying my thought process and
Hmm.
explaining it in a better manner. I think it
Okay.
was more difficult since I was having trouble solving it as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that is an important skill, right? Like being able to voice your thoughts
Right.
while thinking through the actual problem when you don't necessarily know what's going on yet. Or like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
absolutely like a bottleneck for people. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely kind of get into it here. So I think keeping in mind that this is like a more like a standard problem. It's not meant to be like super difficult until the end. I think the first question was done relatively well. There weren't really that many, like from a technical perspective. I think it was quite well done. There was strong intuition about how you want to do the one pass solution. I think that was good. Again, like what you said is, when you have some confidence about what's going on there, it's good to say so. Or it's good to say, hey, I think I know how to handle this problem. I think this is the solution I'm going to take. Here are some concerns I might have regarding, this approach, but I have an outline. Here's my thoughts, right? I think if you
Right.
put those out, just lay those out as soon as you can. That's going to help for a couple of things. I mean, the first thing is that just putting thoughts down on the page helps you think through the next steps. That's the first thing. The second thing is if those aren't if your thoughts aren't correct, at least the interviewer is able to step in and kind of correct you right off the bat, right?
Oh, right.
So a couple of things I would say is like don't hold too many things in your head. Write stuff like even when the interviewer starts dictating the problem, I think that's immediately a good time to just start writing notes down. Okay, so that
Okay.
would be what I would say first is getting that down ASAP, right? And that's independent of any technical skill in that sense, right? So that's just like more of a
Right.
strategy or technique that you can adopt.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, otherwise, there's not much to talk about in the first problem. That's pretty simple. That's just like kind of a warm up kind of thing. That I would expect to be a pretty standard like intern easy level kind of question. Okay, so that's kind of
Right.
where that lies. The second question is more of a standard problem. Like this is what you would expect an average kind of difficulty to prepare for. This would be good, right? And this kind of problem is one which relies on you to observe patterns in the numbers, right? And so, in this problem, the main hint I gave was just how we can break it up into pairs and only consider pairs at a time, right? So,
Yes.
for example, people who have taken or courses or maybe have seen these sort of problems before, seen the greedy algorithm, this is called, it's called greedy. If you've seen greedy problems before, if you've been introduced to greedy algorithms before, that would definitely help the intuition on this one, right? If you
Right.
haven't heard of greedy, if you haven't done that before, then it would definitely be more difficult, no doubt. Right.
I see. Okay.
So, I mean, that isn't the only way to solve it. There's many ways to solve it, but that is typically the most intuitive one because it's easy to explain, it's relatively easy to understand. But either way, I think you could have probably done a bit more in terms of writing stuff down, trying different inputs, right? Exploring some ideas. Right. In this
Right.
case, I was given very little indication about what you were currently thinking about at any given time, and that
Yeah.
was something which made it a bit more difficult to guide you on because I wasn't sure if you were already thinking of something greedy. I wasn't sure if you were thinking of a recursive solution. Like there's many ways to do this kind of thing, right? So, sometimes it's difficult to match, your wavelength per se, if I don't know what you're already working on. So that's something to consider, right? To consider communicate on the communication front is to just kind of showcase what you're currently working on. And that's true even if, for example, if you were going to work on an idea that would be a dead end idea, that's still totally okay to show because at least the interviewer is given the opportunity to kind of direct you out of that if they so choose. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense actually. Okay. Cool.
Great. And then of course about the third one. So the third one was asked because that would be a reasonable follow-up question for more difficult interviews. That would be a reasonable follow-up. So you might start at the second question and you might be expected to complete the third question, right? That would be like a more difficult interview, but that would be still within reason. Now, the third question is the progressive follow-up for this question because it relies on a different, like it requires you to recognize that the previous approach no longer works because you cannot buy and sell as often as you want, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to recognize that this is fundamentally a different problem, even though the wording is very similar. So the first kind of skill check there really is, like, are you trying to rely too much on the previous solution? Are you trying to think too much about some greedy algorithm again? That's not going to work, right? And so there's many ways to tackle this. Typically speaking, when this is asked as a follow-up question instead of as a straight opener question, the idea is meant as follows, which is if you had done the greedy algorithm for the previous solution, you're meant to do an expansion algorithm on this one, which means instead of comparing things pairwise, you expand the pair to a triplet, to 3 to 4 to 5 to see how far you can get each pair, and you're only limited to 2 pairs, right? So it's a mindset, it's a way to think about the problem. Instead, for example, if you had done a recursive solution on the previous one, then now you would be expected to use memoization. So this one, depending on how you solve the previous problem, would be a way to apply an optimization on the previous one if you can't think of something novel, right? By the way, the novel solution for this one would have been a dynamic programming solution, which is frankly quite unreasonable for the intern easy level, but that's okay. This is meant to just kind of help you think about what's going on. And oftentimes, this is something which people mistake sometimes, which is that, even in easier interviews, you still might be asked a difficult technical question, but the intention is not for you to get the optimal answer. It is instead for you to get an answer, or for you to get a correct answer, or for you to just talk about what ideas are possible, right? So I want to here to dispel the myth that it's not always the case that the problem is meant to be solved optimally. That might be unreasonable in certain circumstances. So just keep that in mind.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Cool.
In this case, this problem, obviously the expectation was not for you to solve it optimally. That would be too far-fetched. However, one thing I did want to point out was that when you were, told essentially to just solve it in any brute force manner, that is something which interviewers would expect you to be able to crank out very quickly. Like if the problem is not esoteric, in other words, it's very understandable. Like you might not know how to solve it optimally, but you understand exactly how to do it in a human manner, right? Like in terms of given a sample. Like
right.
When that's the case, it is expected that you are able to code the brute force implementation very quickly, and that is oftentimes because, well, first of all, it's just a coding skill. Like, can you just code the thing, right? And the second reason is because, like, are you aware of like what's even going on? Like, yeah, you might not know how to solve it, but are you aware? Or like, do you know how to catch the edge cases, right? Like, for example. For example, in this case, one of the edge cases would be, you might not have a second pair, right? And how would that be captured in your code, right? So in your case, you actually had that correct because in this case, you wouldn't add profit if L was not accessible. That's correct, right? We didn't have time to ask you that, right? But in many solutions, that might not be caught, and so even though someone is told to do brute force, they still might not be able to do it correctly. Okay, so when someone is telling you to do something brute force, and oftentimes, by the way, even if it's a simpler problem, you might still offer just to start with the brute force solution to see if you can think of anything along the way. right? And so what I'm getting at
Right.
here is that the brute force solution really is not something to shy away from, but it is something that you are expected to be able to implement quickly. And so it's really easy to practice sort of thing, by the way. This is unlike the other sort of algorithmic difficulties. If you want to practice brute force programming, just take any problem and just immediately brute force it. And for
Right.
any
Okay.
given problem LeetCode that's not like a really esoteric one, you should be able to implement the brute force within 1 minute. Like that's how long you should give yourself to implement the brute force solution. Because once it starts taking longer than that, first of all, it's a bad look, right? It's just a bad look to say that like, oh, this person's having like mechanical issues. Like that's not a good look, right?
Yeah.
Or it's also things like, oh, this person doesn't understand the question. Like why are they fluffing about this? Like this is like they already described it correctly to me. If they describe it correctly to me and they can't implement it, then they just have no coding skill, right? So
Right.
it's a case where like this is not something you want to fumble on, and it is a strategy you can use in other interviews to buy yourself time to think about other optimizations along the way, right? So brute
Right.
force, it is a tool, and if you're given an opportunity to do it, you should be able to seize the opportunity and do it quickly.
Okay. That okay. Yeah, that's something I'll have to practice then.
Cool. That's all the feedback for now. We still have a couple of minutes, so I want to open the floor to you if you have any questions about either today's problems or about like interviews in general.
Uh, right. Just curious, were the first two implementations the optimal solution?
Yes, they were. The
Okay.
first, I mean, the time and space also is correct. I didn't mention that, but it's correct. The second one about the pairing, so
Yeah.
that one is correct. However, there are many different ways to do it, and so for
Right.
example, a
Right.
follow up would have been like, oh, do it a different way, right?
Oh, I
Um,
see.
so in this case, it was optimal. However, it might not be optimal certain circumstances. For example, if you have to literally compare every pair, that would not necessarily be ideal. Um,
Yeah.
so it is asymptotically optimal. That's correct. However, it might not be like necessarily optimal depending on certain situations, and so you might be asked to implement like a recursive solution, for example.
Right. Okay.
And the recursive one would have been for what would have been basically what we had over here, by the way. So it would be a divide and conquer situation.
Oh, okay. Oh, right. That was a big hint. Okay. And then, so as I'm solving problems as well, um, is it expected for me to first explain my approach and then start coding, or is it all right if I think
It's
as I'm
alright if you
coding?
start coding if you demonstrate confidence in your solution. Typically
Yeah.
speaking, it is expected that the level of interview is matched with the level of the candidate, which means that there is not a reasonable expectation that you can code it correctly in the first try.
Yeah.
And so the optimal play is usually to describe your approach and to call out where you think it might be incorrect before you start coding. But
Oh,
there's
I see.
nothing really stopping you from coding it straight up unless the interview is unless it's told up front the interview is meant to be more of a collaborative or more of a like a joint discussion sort of interview, right? So for Leetcode, yeah, typically speaking, we want to just see the optimal solution. We want to see that you can communicate and explain why it's optimal, that kind of stuff. But for other forms of interviews, like for example for object-oriented design or like low-level design or system design, those ones, then a lot more of the weight is put on the communication aspect because there's less obvious of a correct solution in those cases. So it does depend on
Right.
interview. For these ones, if you're very confident, you can just go right in. But I would say in general, you should hedge your bets and explain it up front.
Okay, that makes sense. Cool. All right, great. I think that's all for my questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for your time. Hope you see you around. Take care.
All right, great. Thank you so much. That's helped a ton.
Okay, I'm gonna send this to them. This is for your ref. Okay, so we're gonna get right into the resume reviews now. I was trying to stream this, like cross stream this on Twitch the entire time, but Twitch is having like a fucking seizure, so I don't know what's going on. I'll figure that out later. I'll figure that out. All right, so, um, Oh, cool. I didn't know it was on. Not it's a canvas. Okay. Let me get the link going. Should be this one. Oops. Where's my link? Submit. I can't type. Why is there emojis? Get the shit out of my face. Submit resume. Okay, there we go. Pin. What time are you doing resume review, sir? It is literally in the title. I know I missed your comment because I was focusing, but it is literally in the title. Can you please guide me how to learn coding easily or quickly? There is no easy and quick way to learn coding. Your sound's pretty low. Yeah, some people are pretty low. I try to adjust them live on my mixer as I see, so it's like negative 20 decibels. But sometimes I miss the mark. I'm sorry. Good night, guys. Thank you, Raul. Thank you for wishing us good night. All right. So resume reviews, and then I'm gonna put my thing here. Submit resume link in comments or disk. Back at 13:05. All right, I'll be back in a bit. All right, I'm back. I'm back. All right, let me see. Okay, let's see any submissions. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Okay, today's date is 7/5. 7/5, we have 2. All right. 7/5, we have 2. Let's take a look. Who is this? All right. All right, this looks good. Let's take a look. Wait, does it? Yeah, it's good. Okay, it's good. All right, so this person's comment. All right. Trying to break into big tech 2026 internship cycle in the U.S. This resume is back-end oriented, optimized for passing ATS filters, aligns well with what big tech to look for in sweet internships. Because I believe it's optimized. Okay, this is what you believe. Okay, noted. I plan to create a separate resume tailored for internship roles at companies like Airbnb. Really appreciate the review. Okay. Okay, let's take a look. You are from the U.S. You're going to the U.S. Okay, noted. Let's have a look. So so this is a big tech. You actually didn't say if you're going for back-end oriented big tech. This resume is back-end oriented. That's true. Let's have a look. All right. That's a lot of stuff over there. That's a lot. Oh, this looks okay. This looks familiar. All right. Okay. Let's take a look. Again, if you're going for big tech, you can just get straight all this, just straight up. All right. Prop via, let's see, Detroit, multi-tenant, architect and multi-tenant. AA property. Oh, AA property. Okay, I don't know why I saw so much difficulty reading AA property analysis platform. Okay, I understand. Okay, 1 million records a month. Okay. Okay. Okay, so you architected this. Okay, sure. Built high throughput REST gRPC events from a developer. Okay, looks good. CRM SaaS doesn't. Oh, okay. Recurrent revenue delivered. Okay, instrumental telemetry. I like that. Reduced latency, scaled release cadence. From if you use this, the word scale is relative. So scaling release cadence to something doesn't make any sense. It's scale release cadence from something to something. That's scale, right? That's what scaling means. Is you multiply by something. So you're actually missing a number there, or change the verb. Okay, trim prints, Fargate spawn. Okay, I can believe that. See, now you're saying Graviton. Graviton I know is cheap. Graviton's about 30% cheaper. So that I can't believe. However, Graviton Spot is usually not much cheaper. But honestly, most people who aren't me wouldn't know that, so they wouldn't question this. I was at AWS previously. I did a lot of pricing. 3 points for this? I don't know, man. Let me see. Okay. So instead of putting 3 points here, put 1 point here. Like none of these points are relevant, to be honest. Put 1 point here and put 1 point here instead. So just basically get rid of it. Like this is pretty worthless, to be honest. Okay, this one I saw last time. I thought it was pretty good. Let me take a look at it again. Yeah. So I'm still at the same point. Still, I think the product is cool. However, I would still not talk about latency and Node.js in the same sentence. That's my personal opinion. So what I'm reading here is that you have backend technology already. I don't think you need to advertise that you use Node here. I think you should just have that. Then it'd be okay, right? Because for most people who don't do quant, they don't know that 30 milliseconds is basically completely unacceptable. So they might say, oh, that's because most people's perception of latency is internet ping, which is like between 10 and 100 milliseconds, right? So 30 is like, oh yeah, that sounds like pain. That's reasonable. You know, I've actually interviewed at quant. I've done a lot of quant stuff. It's like usually for quant, it's sub microsecond, right? That's what we're looking for. Sub micro, sub nanosecond, like within a clock cycle kind of area, right? Like fiber optic kind of latency. So, you know, again, I last time I know you said this was for fun. So obviously I'm not around that. I would just personally say just don't say no. Node is worthless at this point. Like it doesn't say anything, right? Otherwise, yeah, same stuff as before. I would also say, by the way, that you shouldn't focus on just on backend for big tech. Like for example, putting React is basically it's just basically free points. So I would say you should also put some front end here. Verbs look better though. I'll give you that. Verbs look better. All right, let's take a look at this guy. Wait, did you say anything? You said some stuff. Blah blah blah. Okay, yeah. Nothing relevant. All right, this guy. Let's take a look. So their comment is switching from game to software in other industries. Okay. Don't have a good response rate for 2025 co-op, winter, summer, fall. Only callback for the fall is to companies that won't dox you for. Okay. Looking for US as well. I see. Okay. Let's take a look. What do you have? Okay. Do you have a database? You have a database, but it's not relational. Okay, so maybe you should keep these. Okay, how about this? Okay, maybe you keep these courses then. Okay, JVC. Interactive quest and dialogue system. Enhancing learning. Wait, what is this? To conceptualize and develop an educational game on emergency operations center. I think this grammar is a bit weird, no? Develop an educational game on emergency operations center. Okay, maybe this entire thing is like a proper noun, so it makes sense, but that just sounds a bit weird. Enhancing study curriculum for 50 government employees across British Columbia. Okay. Okay. Like this is which is hard to quantify. Like I'll let it slide because it's so qualitative, but like just be aware that like most people just don't care about that stuff. Develop new features for in-house dev test device tool to streamline. Develop in-house for. Okay, I see. I mean, this like if you put in a streamline here, you gotta quantify that, right? Deliver 10 user requested features, including blah blah blah. Okay, okay, this is good. GM internal testing to pilot to Kinter, 50 waterfall, 30% time. Okay, this is good. 60 user blah blah blah. 30 visual. Okay. Okay. Okay, I think that's reasonable. I would expect some more stuff here, like some more, because you were here for 9 months, right? 8 months, 9 months. I would expect some more stuff here personally. But maybe there isn't much more stuff, so that's what you could put in there. That's fine then. That's fine. Get some water here. Excuse me. Okay. Let's take a look. So this is a game dev team of 10. So you said a lot of teams of stuff here. Okay. To maintain the framework for building mobile. Okay. So I would personally say, what did you do specifically in this team regarding this? I think this could be good for context, but I want to see what you specifically did, right? Improve the performance of UI components and demo showcase at Unity, put on 20% PS, doing allocation fund devices. I think that's good. I would like to see a bit more of how. So how did you improve the performance? That would be something which I think is more interesting to talk about, dive into, right? Optimize API update request backend, just zero cost, user crash logs. Reducing user crash logs in terms of mobile game. Okay. I think that's reasonable. I think this is the main point here, though. Like, this is the main point. I would like to see a lot more technical detail here. Okay, so access, travel, see dates. If you're doing all the game dev stuff, you want to break into different industry, dates matter because then they know what you're really focusing on. Right, this is more recent, then they know that, okay, this person, despite having game dev experience, they're trying to break into this field because they have more recent projects. So dates matter a lot, especially when you're changing industries, okay? All right, so okay, so let's take a look. Develop full stack website highlighting verified accessible stays, implementing front end and back end functionality. Highlighting okay, verify. I don't know what verified accessible stays are. Is it like Airbnb? If this is Airbnb, just don't write this. Write Airbnb clone. Okay. I don't know what this is. Implemented accessibility best practices. That's good. Coordinated development workflows. This integrated version control with Git, deploy with Docker Vercel. Coordinated development workflows. I think you could probably elaborate a bit more on what this is because you're using 2 lines anyways. You have a lot of room here, right? Okay. Book of Hours Wikipedia. Book of Hours Wikipedia. Okay, let's read. Develop a full stack web application with 2 students to contain. Wait, what? Design a full stack web app with 2 students to contain information on the characters, items, and resources in the video game Book of Heroes. Oh, okay, I see. I see. To contain. The verb to contain is not right here. You can see like to host, for example. Excuse me, I get some water again. Fuck me. All right. Okay. Built and implemented REST API endpoints, Node.js Express, frontend to perform efficient CRUD operations. Okay. Okay. I know what this is. This makes sense. I would probably not use the adjective efficient to describe Node and Express. However, I think you could probably find some other adjective there. Resume application generator, design a web app to allow users to create their own resume. Deploy document image, complaint. Okay, this is pretty cool. I like that. Some stuff over here, some stuff over here. Okay. Let's see. There's some stuff in chat. No database experience in co-ops. Yeah, that's unfortunate. In that case, I mean, MongoDB is what it is. I would say, hold on, let me just take a look. What did you say? Fintech, manufacturing, insurance. Okay, so if you go for any of those legacy industries, they don't know what MongoDB is, bro. Like the older the industry, the more they require relational databases. So I'd say that's probably like pretty big like hole in here is that we have no relational database. So get that fixed to base app. That's it. Only their testing process is slow. Then yeah, okay, that's fine, right? That's fine. If it's 9 months, you got some stuff there. Okay, that's fine. The website is similar to wheel the world. Okay, I can imagine what that is. But I don't know what that is. People with accessibility needs. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, let me just tell you something, okay? In the real world, nobody knows what that is. Rename this thing Airbnb for disabled people, right? Just name it Airbnb for disabled people. Don't be fancy, or keep the name and just write beside it parentheses Airbnb for disabled people, okay? Otherwise, there's just no context. Yeah, some work on the projects, relational databases, some wording. You can get that polished up. And dates. Dates are important. Okay, next. All right. All right, this guy says, looking for any sweet TBH, don't like full stack anymore, but yeah, anything is fine. Looking for winter and summer, okay. Okay. Okay, education, stuff, okay. Incoming, okay, what is this? Celery, types, re-architecting the backend from Next.js monolith to a fast API microservice, okay. Okay, increase celery, okay. What? But offloading multi-gigabyte S3 uploads to Celery workers with Redis. So, I would like a from. From what to this? Space another point I haven't written out yet. Okay, sure. Reduce chat latency. Intent class. 94%. Is that good or bad? I don't know. I would recommend you look at this number and say, is this good or bad? If it's bad, just don't write it in. Paper production, late delivery. Okay. time-sensitive routing algorithm, which optimizes vehicle routing problems. Okay. Okay, I can believe that. Radio control vehicle, 7-byte Bluetooth stream protocol, enabling real-time mapping of joystick inputs to interrupt PWM commands on MSP. Okay. Developed to collision avoidance system. Okay, so this is a hardware project. That's cool, right? It's cool. However, in your notes, you wrote any SWE TBH. This is just not SWE, right? Like this is more like firmware stuff. So I mean, while this is cool, it provides no value in the resume. Just FOI. IDE for automating rapid LaTeX PDF conversions. PyQt. Enable document 100 pages to render in 1 second. Caching PDF information. Read this. Okay. Oh, this is familiar. Okay. User file entries to train response times under 50 milliseconds, 90% queries. Implement autocomplete system. Okay, I would like. So this is interesting. This is a bit more like back end focused. I would like to see like a how, like what was the algorithm being used here, what was the structure being used, and that'd be kind of cool. Otherwise, this feels pretty reasonable. GitHub link as well. I love that. Okay. Typing game. Oh, I saw that. This was fine. This is pretty standard backend stuff. Pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. Computer vision application, analyze bench press. Again, this is really cool. Again, not sure how much value this would provide for a SWE. Okay, not sure how much value for a SWE. If you get rid of these two and put like a generic full stack web app, that would probably go a long way, to be honest. All right, this one. Put our last one for today. Let's look at the time. Holy shit, guys, we got LeBron James in the chat. We got LeBron fucking James, guys. That's crazy. All right, looking for PM roles. Gave up on SWE. All right, I can help you on that. I can help you. Okay. All right. LeBron James. That's crazy. Okay. PM intern present. Software engineering intern. Project 1. Okay. So you'd probably put this over here then. Okay. Notion, Confluence, Superset. Okay. So, okay. Split that. All right. Okay. So, led product vision tools surveying 5,000 users. Selling products reduce stakeholder manual work by 66%. Draw 100% on-time delivery rate for projects. From ideation and launch, provide weekly sailing meters, flexible roadmaps, blah blah. Defining data-driven KPIs. Oh, okay. Okay. Improved internal scheduling tool used by 40 departments. Annual amount for 850 hours. I like that. Interview 20 plus stakeholders and cover bottlenecks and blah 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 blah. That's good. So this sounds like a lot of internal stuff. There's a lot of internal focus here. I would like to see some clarification about whether or not you were just working on internal products or if there were also external projects. Specifically because I don't think on-time delivery rate is the best metric for external projects. And so this hints to me like this was mostly small fish projects. So I think a bit of clarification there would probably be helpful. Or if you do think that this is like if you do think that this is the best way to phrase it, which I'm not doubting you, like it might be, then just be prepared to answer those in the behavioral interviews, right? So just be prepared for that. Okay, so this is like this is like just right before that, right? So software, we're at Django, some stuff, time conflicts. What is this? Scheduling dashboard. Okay. Oh, okay. Development of Python script is parse structure and of course file measures for accurate. So accurate is an adjective. I think I need some proof to see that's accurate, right? Like you can't just put it there. Automated weekly Excel reports for Python 300 plus. Led to 10 plus data consistency. Wait, what? Oh, the previously led to. Okay. I believe that. That's good. That's fine. Okay, project 1. Hackathon doesn't matter. Rag doesn't matter. Okay, this is okay. So, all right, product management. You got to put some PM projects here. Okay. First of all, hackathons are great. Hackathons are fun. There's no skill. Okay, there's like not much going on there. Okay, I think if you want to highlight PM skill, there's a lot of better PM project you could probably do. So I would say, I mean, I know this is recent, right? I know this is recent, but I'd say going forward, you should probably spend your time on PM specific projects or more of this stuff, right? More of this stuff that you can like point towards. So so that's what I would say I would encourage you to go towards. I mean, what you have right here, I presume is probably the best you can do, but I think going forward, there's definitely room for improvement. So so thanks for reaching out. Okay, let's take a look. That's all the submissions for today. There's some stuff in chat. Do you think my resume is good enough to get interviews at US Big Tech? So who are you again? You're the first one, right? You're the first one. US Big Tech has international student with no name college in the US. I mean, so there's two things I would say here. The resume itself is fine, like in terms of content. I think basically there are two things to like. There's basically two things that you should be considering. First of all, let's address the no name college thing. No name college, it doesn't matter. Okay. No name college doesn't matter. What does matter, however, is still finding other ways to network and meet people. Okay. So, for example, just by having like a no name college, whatever it may be, doesn't like disqualify you. However, what no name colleges also typically mean is that there aren't big tech recruiters going there. There typically aren't as many relevant student-led initiatives for bringing recruiters in for career fairs, for hackathons, for bringing sponsors on, for having like tech talks or whatever. That's what it typically means, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you just die on the spot. No, that means that you need to put in more effort to put yourself in those situations where you can have those opportunities, right? So for example, if a neighboring school does have a hackathon, you gotta go, right? If a neighboring school does have some career fair, tech fair, you gotta go if you can, right? So that's where the school matters. It's not the name that like disqualifies you. It's the opportunities the school brings, right? So obviously, I don't know what school you go to. Don't tell me. It's chill, right? But just be aware that like there is a difference, but the difference isn't just the name. It's the opportunities. So you can still make it up yourself, but it is more effort on your part, right? Okay. The international part doesn't really matter. I would say don't over. I mean, first of all, there's nothing you can do about the fact you're international, right? There's nothing you can do about that, so there's no point worrying about it. However, I would still say that even if you're international, you should still spend your time preparing for these sort of interviews, preparing for those resumes, preparing for projects, because like when the opportunity does present itself, you want to make sure you can maximize it, right? So like for big tech, it won't really matter if they have good immigration policies, but for medium tech, like like Fortune, let's say like out of the Fortune like 20, the rest like the other Fortune 80 companies, yeah, then it might matter for those Fortune 80 companies, right? But again, there's nothing you can really do about it, so don't worry about it. I mean, that's sort of all I can say. Cool. Let me just check through the submissions. Nothing else. Nope, that's all. So in that case, thank you all for tuning in. And actually, wait, let me just check my other stream. Did my other stream actually like work? Oh, I think it actually worked. Okay. Yeah, anyways. All right. See you guys.